Hi, do you think friends are overrated? Do you enjoy when people scream, "No, don't do that" to me at you? If both of these two things are true, then, well, first you probably need help and definitely need to change your priorities in your life. But second, I think I have a deck for you. Hi and welcome to cEDH TV with a deck tech video for the Beamtown Bullies. I think the name is absolutely on point. Bullies is perfect. I don't know what Wizard of the Coast were thinking, because this guy or these guys, ogre, devil, warrior. So I think there's several people inside this one card. Like there's one ogre and then there's a bunch of devils. Like this card is really evil. And it's definitely cEDH viable. Like, this commander is actually really good. It's not like the best thing you could possibly do, but it definitely has a cool thing going for it. It has a fundamental problem in multiplayer formats that we're gonna talk about later in the video. So it's a 4 CMC 4/4 Yund legendary creature with vigilance and haste. The haste is great and vigilance is good too, because you can attack and still activate it the same turn you cast it. And target opponent whose turn it is. That is really important, whose turn it is. You can't specify which opponent you want to target, you always target the person whose turn it is. So if you put this into play and someone Scorched Plowshare this, it goes away and it's spot removed, and nothing will happen if you activate it because it's currently your turn. But whose turn it is puts target non-legendary creature card from your graveyard onto the battlefield under their control. It gains haste, goad it, and at the beginning of the next end step, exile it. This creates a really cool concept that we're looking for really bad creatures. Like the first creature concept that just comes to our mind is Phage the Untouchable. Now this doesn't work because Phage is legendary, and the Beamtown Bully literally says non-legendary creature card from your graveyard. I really think Wizards of the Coast were actually thinking about Phage when they made the Beamtown Bullies. But that is totally fine, because there's another card that kinda does the same thing. Leveler, a 5 CMC artifact creature. A 10/10, that's huge. But when Leveler comes into play, remove your library from the game. So what we kinda have here is tap, reanimate Leveler onto an opponent and remove their library from the game, which basically means tap, kill a player. It's actually one use only, because your leveler goes to exile after this. It doesn't go back to your graveyard. So you can't sit there and just kill player, or well, you can, we're gonna talk about that later. But I want to showcase the deck concept that is very clean, very straightforward, and actually quite easy to achieve. We have a bunch of red variants of draw, discard effects like Fatalist Looting, and then we just draw into leveler variants. We're gonna showcase a few soon, and then we just use our commander to destroy a player one by one. Also, they are forced to attack with that leveler, so a 10/10 is being swung at someone. So you tap, someone dies, and then someone else is getting a 10/10 at their face. But now I have a small confession to make. I didn't really make this deck entirely myself. Like, we're looking for bad cards here. Cards we don't normally or never usually see in cEDH because they're terrible. But now we want to have terrible cards in our deck. So I went to the MTG Competitive EDH Facebook group and made a post where I asked about bad stuff. I really recommend this place. It's a good group if you want to ask people to take a look at your deck list and just talk cEDH in general. And we got some really good suggestions of terrible cards. A really famous one was World Gorger Dragon. There's a big problem with World Gorger Dragon that, sure, you're kind of destroying a player, you're removing their entire board state, all lands and everything, but you have to have a spot removal for the dragon, or they are going to regain it at the end step. Ball from Split Seconds recommended Malfigor. I kind of like Malfigor in the deck because you're forcing someone to discard their entire hand. That is good. There's just a big problem that you're kind of board wiping yourself at the same time. So I think I'm gonna have Malfigor hanging in the sideboard. Here is a great suggestion from Ken, Eater of Days. And this is where this deck just becomes So evil. Like, this isn't killing someone, this is just making their life miserable. Like, they're gonna hate you for the rest of the game. Like, this isn't really killing someone, but like losing 2 turns in a row is literally being dead in cEDH, because the game is probably gonna be over before you have a turn again. Honestly though, I really like that they made this new bully commander, because it makes these really strange and weird cards you normally don't wanna play like viable. Like, you're bringing this commander to a cEDH table, and Eater of Days is like great for the deck. That is so cool. Like this one, Soul Gorger Ogre. Thank you, Edgar, for suggesting this creature. It's not perfect, it's literally the same thing as that World Gorger Dragon, because when this disappears, which is gonna do in the end step, they just regain all their life. But if you have a Lightning Bolt in your hand, they're dead. But let me showcase a scenario, a really likely one too. Let's say someone is casting Ad Nauseam during their main phase, and you cast your Instant Speed and Tomb, auto-include inside this deck, by the way, like a must-have. And you find your Soul Gorger Ogre and put it into your graveyard. And then you activate your commander and put that Soul Gorger into play, and you say, I pass turn on the Ad Nauseam, have fun. Priceless. Now some of you might say, why? We just use Leveler here instead. It's the same thing but kind of better, they literally die. However, Leveler and this commander and each creature you reanimate is a one-time use. You've already might have used up the Leveler. Unless you've destroyed the Leveler, it goes back to your graveyard and you reanimate it again. We had one suggested to us from Gerald, Inventor of Truth. I really didn't know this one existed. Or maybe I knew about it, but then I just forgot about it, because when you're into cEDH, you usually forget about these very weird casual cards you normally never wanna play. So this is not a perfect leveler. When Inventor of Truth enters the battlefield, exile all cards from your library face down, then shuffle all cards from your graveyard into your library. So they're not like dying on the spot, but you're basically removing their entire library, and depending on what they have in their graveyard, you might literally kill them. I really like Astra Oddsmaker. I remember when it came and everyone was kinda playing it because it had a cool value engine and people were very interested in putting cool cards into your graveyard. And this is like a perfect card for this deck. You're gaining card draw at the same time getting those key pieces into your graveyard with this thing. And once again, this is where this game plan is so easy and streamlined to achieve. There are so many variants to Astra Oddsmaker, and as we can see, there's a whole cool bunch of variants to different leveler variants, cool creatures your opponents never wanna have. But there's another really important aspect we need to talk about as well. You can give away creatures from your graveyard that your opponents could use to interact with another opponent. So let's say there's a Rhystic Study in play, and we wanna interact with that, and one of our other opponents also wanna interact with that. We can now use our commander to reanimate Outland Liberator and make that opponent pay 1 mana to destroy that Rhystic Study for us, for the team. Still on the topic of destroying artifacts, you should use your Outland Liberator and all the other cool artifact destroy spells that we are including inside this deck to destroy your Leveler, because Leveler will now go back to the graveyard after it's done its amazing job of ripping someone's library apart, and also let them attack first, destroy Leveler in their second main phase, and then you can reanimate it again and kill another player. This means that this deck naturally becomes a very interactive deck, filled with variants of ways to destroy artifacts, as well as being very political. This commander can actually do a lot of really interesting and cool things with an opponent as a teamwork effort. Something as simple as giving away a Bird of Paradise. Like, you're gonna have mana dorks in your graveyard eventually, and sometimes you're in a situation where one of your opponent might be able to cast a spell you want them to cast that could interact with another opponent, and you can give them a Bird of Paradise to help them cast that spell. This isn't a play that is like in the primer of sorts. This isn't a play you're like supposed to do, but it's something you could do, and it could matter sometimes. But now we need to talk about something really important about this deck. You're kinda king-making here. Like, the main game plan isn't to combo off and win and just boom, end the game explosively. Like, you're killing players one by one with leveler variants. And that isn't something you should always do out of the blue. You should always think about how the game will be impacted once you've killed a player. Sometimes it's actually the wrong action to kill any player. There might be situations where you shouldn't kill any of your free opponents. Because sometimes killing a player helps another player, so you could literally help people win the game by killing the wrong player. And this is where I wanna say that this is a very tricky commander to play. This is something for an experienced political player to operate and pilot. This isn't something a beginner of cEDH should pick up. It's really fun. This is a really fun commander, but tread carefully. There's also something you should be very careful with when you're playing this, is that you could accidentally become a bully of sorts. And I'm talking about a real bully, and even be like the political aspect of, I could kill you if you do that. Don't do that or I kill you. Like, you could say that. And some people really frown upon that and think that's annoying and very bad sportsmanship. Also, when you're piloting this deck, you are 100% going to run into situations eventually where you have Leveler in your graveyard, you're about to reanimate it with your beamtown bullies, and someone goes, "Not me, target him." The beamtown bullies naturally creates political discussions whether you like it or not. And you have to think about that before you pick up this deck, because you are gonna run into those situations. And if you don't enjoy situations where you have to sit and communicate with your opponents and your opponents have opinions about your plays, like a lot of people are gonna have so many opinions about your plays. You're gonna hear people saying, "You did it wrong, you should have targeted him and not me." You're gonna hear a lot of that if you're gonna play this deck, and you need to be ready for that. Now, as always, in the description below of this video you can find a link to this deck list if you want to take a look at card by card exactly how it's been put together. And there's a lot of cards that actually hang out in the sideboard as well. Cards that are good, like I think Sire of Insanity is definitely viable here. You're going to make everybody discard their hand, one-time use, that could be good. Also, Sire of Insanity is pretty decent to just cast on its own. Another shout out, Bazaar of Baghdad, and now the deck became really expensive. You don't have to have Bazaar, but Bazaar is great for this deck. That card draw and discard effect is huge. And there are so many already existing cards for this deck that it's amazing. Like Gamble is great, we have Buried Alive, Professional Facebreaker is definitely good. I think Bedlam Reveler is great inside this deck. Now, we could reanimate it on an opponent to make an opponent discard a card. They draw 3 more cards, that's bad. But I play it because I want to reanimate it myself. We have a lot of sorceries and instants in this deck, so we could naturally pay, I want to say 2 red mana, but I think it's going to be an average of 4 or so, depending on how long into the game you've gotten. But it's absolutely amazing at helping you dig through the deck, getting your important pieces into your graveyard and getting new cards into your hand. Also, you don't have to be that picky about what you're discarding. Goblin Lore is fine. Draw 4 cards, then discard 3 cards at random. Yeah, it's fine. Also, this deck could definitely be built differently. You could have a lot of stacks effects inside the deck, so that you could make the game longer and safer. Safer to kill opponents one by one. Last thing I want to say before I disappear is that I'm gonna upload a few gameplay videos that I've played with this commander on my cEDH TV gameplay YouTube channel. So if you want to see this commander some cool action, those gameplays are gonna pop up here soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and you wanna support me, feel free to share my videos or even checking out my Patreon page. Also, purchasing cards from the TCG Players website using the affiliate link in the description below of the video will also help the channel grow. So a big thank you to all of you.